Born to a mother at 16 years old, to a two-bedroom home. Used to sleep on the floor. At the age of 7 years old, you discovered your dream. You wanted to become an NFL player. You used to get up with your father on Saturday mornings at 5:30 and used to run miles and miles. The first game of your sophomore season, you tore the ligaments. You was out for your junior year. You broke your clavicle the first game. Out for the season. When college scouts would come in to see you and they would say, man, you are extremely talented. We just don't know if you're going to make it out of high school, let alone college. He said, son, there is no way that you will make it. Coach Philip Foreman from the University of Tennessee came into Crim High School. Inky, I want to offer you a scholarship to go to the University of Tennessee. You said, Coach, I'm coming. The reporter was making a beeline to Inky Johnson. Do you even think you're going to play at the University of Tennessee? I'm going to start at the University of Tennessee. You played a little bit your freshman sophomore season came. You broke the starting line. You got as strong as you had ever been. More of a student of the game. You got the bench press 315 pounds. You call your grandmother, you call your mother. You say, after this year, our lives are about to change forever. Second game, you guys are playing against Air Force. You guys found yourselves in the dogfight. Fourth quarter, Air Force had just went down and onside, kicked the ball and dropped. Air Force recovered. You guys broke the huddle. You called quarters come. Running back slips out of the backfield. Now he's coming down your side. Quarterback released the ball to the running back. Running back catches it.
Got the pass caught.
Stop. I'm standing between you and the rest of your life. Where do your strength come from? Where do your drive come from? Where do your motivation come from? Where do your perseverance come from? Everything that you've ever been through, everything that you've ever faced, you've had the ability to overcome. You've had the ability to persevere. Everybody that ever made a sacrifice for you in your life, everybody that ever believed in you, everybody that ever gave you an opportunity in your life, you can't let them down. And I can't stop you. I can't stop you. Even if I wanted to, I can't stop you because you're about to get stronger.
Barney back. Got the pass caught. Well, we got a Tennessee player. It's Inky Johnson who's down.
People ask you all the time if you can go back to September 9th, 2006, that game against the Air Force, and you can stop that moment, or you can not play in that game, or you knew this situation was about to happen, would you change it? I can't stop this moment because of the people that believed in you and the people that sacrificed so much for you and the people that saw something in you but you couldn't see it in yourself. To your grandmother, to your mother, to your mentor, to your father, to your family members, to your friends, to the people that looked to you and were inspired and were encouraged and were motivated. You had overcame so much. And by doing that, it gave so many other people strength. So I don't want you to deal with the disappointment of thinking that you disappointed them because your dream has left. I can't change it because of what's about to happen. But even if I could, I wouldn't.
I want to say it's an extreme honor and privilege to be here with you guys. You know, every opportunity I get to speak is something that I can never take for granted because I never saw myself doing this. And so I remember when I was at UT, they put me in public speaking when I was in college and I dropped the class on the second day. I despised it, right? Just never saw it in my future. And so me being able to do this for a living now is something that I'm extremely grateful for. I'm extremely humbled by, and I just love it, every opportunity that I get. But before I get started, I want to share something with you guys that I do every single day of my life. You know, I have a quote bowl in my living room. And every single day I stop at this quote bowl and I pull out different cards and I read them to kind of put my mind in the right space, get my disposition right. I discuss them with my children. And when I travel on the road, I take some with me and I read them as well. And so before I get into my presentation, I want to read a couple to you guys just to start us off. And the first one reads, when we lose one blessing, another one is often unexpectedly given in its place. The second one reads, when you have a bad day, a really bad day, try and treat the world better than it treated you. And the last one reads, the secret to happiness is to count your blessings while others are adding up their troubles. And so I'll never forget, prior to the pandemic, I was traveling a lot and I always would get in town late because, you know, I was trying to balance it out with my children, with my wife, and with my career. And so I would go to their extracurricular. I would jump on a plane late, get to a city late. Now, I'll never forget, I had a trip out to Seattle, right? And I get in town around midnight. Gentleman picks me up from the airport, great spirit about him. You know, I thank him. We get to the hotel. I get out of the car and he says to me, I just want to let you know that I'll be the gentleman that's coming back to pick you up in the morning to take you to your engagement. I said, great, what time would you like me to be down? He said, 7:15. I said, great, I'll see you then. Next morning rolls around, I'm downstairs. I crack a joke with him about the weather. I get in the car, and whenever I'm in a new city, I'll always track the route, maybe 5-10 minutes in. I'll put my phone away, and so I'm tracking a route like I usually do. 5 minutes in, I put my phone away. I look up, I look in the mirror, and I could see the gentleman's face. And I could see he was crying. And I said to him, excuse me, sir, is everything okay? Like, are you okay? Is everything fine? And he said, yeah, everything is fine. He said, my normal job is not in transportation. He said, I'm not a driver. He said, my buddy owns the company, but whenever he gets overwhelmed, he'll call and say, hey man, can you cover a shift for me? He said, but I haven't done it for him in probably over a year. He said, but the great part about it, it's always a cool experience because when I do it, he has a contract with the Seattle Seahawks. So it's always a great experience. Take a picture, share with my children, always cool, right? He said, so when I picked you up last night, I didn't know if you used to play for the Seahawks, if you're on the staff with the Seahawks. He said, I didn't know any of that. He said, so when I dropped you off, I went on a computer and I started to look you up. And he said, I started to see these videos and I saw one about perspective. I saw one about gratitude. And he said, the reason I'm crying is because my wife just died. I just lost my wife. He said, and I've been living my life thinking, surely there's nothing that can bring me the energy, the focus, the zeal that my wife once brought me. And he said, I'm not saying that the videos can replace my wife because nothing could ever replace my wife. He said, but what it did for me was it renewed my energy, it renewed my focus, it gave me a new lease on life, and it really helped me. And he went on to share, and when he got done, I said to him, respectfully, sir, can I ask you a couple of questions? I said, I just want to understand something. He said, sure, what you got? I said, can you tell me at a basic level, right? Just at a basic level, when you encountered the opposition, encountered the adversity, what was probably the toughest, roughest, darkest moment of your life, when you encountered that blow, how did you literally get up every single day, put one foot in front of the other, carry on in your career, raise your other two children? How did you literally continue to function in the midst of the uncertainty, the midst of the adversity, and the midst of the opposition, right? How did you function, right? Because we all know the quote says it. Everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Adversity hits a lot of people and people respond differently. My favorite quote is the quote by Dr. King that says, you judge the true character and caliber of a person, not by where they stand in times of comfort and convenience. You judge the true character and caliber of a person by where they stand in times of challenge and controversy. And so I wanted to understand in the midst of the challenge and the controversy, how did you literally pick up the pieces to the puzzle and continue to move forward? And the guy said to me, Inky, I want to be honest with you. Follow me. He said, my wife had been sick for 30 years. He said she got to a point she was wheelchair bound and she would gradually get worse, right? And when she got to the wheelchair, I would have to get up every single day, get her dressed, put her in a wheelchair. He said every single day, it seemed as if the burden would get heavier and heavier, right? The adversity would get heavier and heavier. And he said we would bicker, we would fuss, we would argue. Every single day we would go at it. Until one day I got up, I'm getting my wife dressed, I put her in a wheelchair, and we're going back and forth, and I say to my wife, I'm leaving, I can't take it. And he said he packed a night bag, right? He packs the night bag, picks up the phone, calls his friend picks up, she says, hey man, me and my wife are going through it, can I come and stay at your house tonight? Buddy says, sure. Gets to his buddy's house that night, complains the whole night, fusses the whole night, gets up the next morning, goes into the restroom, sits his night bag on the floor, reaches into it, grabs his toothbrush, grabs his toothpaste, looks in the mirror, starts to brush his teeth. And as he's brushing his teeth, he's saying to himself, for richer or for poor? Yeah, we've been pretty poor. Through sickness and health. Man, she's gotten pretty sick. For better or for worse. And he stopped. And the conviction said to him, you didn't finish. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. You were all good when it was all good. But when the opposition got to be too much, you bailed. You left the pocket. You didn't stay true to what you told her you would stay true to. You had counterfeit commitment, not concrete commitment. Your commitment was conditionalized. It was based upon situation, circumstance, and if everything played into your favor. You didn't have the commitment that said, can I stay true to what I said I would do long after the mood that I've set it in has left. And he said the conviction was so strong, it took him out of his friend's door, back into the door of this house. And as soon as he walked in, he said his wife was sitting there. She said, "What are you doing here?" And he said he told her, "Give it to me. I messed up. Give it to me. I deserve it." And he said after she got done, he said to her, "I just want you to know that I'll never leave again. I just want you to know no matter how bad, how tough, how rough it gets, you'll never have to worry about the element of me giving up, quitting, and bailing again. You'll never have to worry about that again." I said, "Great, I got that part." Answer this last question for me. I said, if you can go back, shift, change, do anything different about the situation, what would it be? Man, that's easy. I would have shifted my perspective a long time ago and I would have embraced it. He said, because as cliche as it sounds, as soon as I changed my perspective about it, me embracing it, I didn't even view it as opposition and adversity anymore. I viewed it as an opportunity. I said, bingo. He said, why did you say that? I said, man, I'm just a firm believer that perspective drives performance every day of the week. I'm just a firm believer how we view what we do will always affect how we do what we do. I'm just a firm believer if the perspective is in order, now we can learn the lesson. But if we don't acquire perspective about the things that we face and the purpose and why we do what we do, we can never learn the lessons or extract them when things don't play in our favor or go the way we want them to go. And so we live in a world where it's a lot of talk about the word why, right? Like find your why. What's your why, right? Every single day, if things get hard, tap into your why, right? And I always challenge people and say, do you have a transcending why? They say, what do you mean by that? Do you have a transcending why? Does it transcend situations, circumstances, if things don't go the way you want them to go, if things don't play in your favor, if you don't get what you want, or if you accomplish or get what you want, right? If the mission is intact, if the purpose is intact, do you have a transcending why? Meaning why you do what you do. If you face a level of adversity and opposition that knocked you off your pivot, if one day you're on top of the world and you wake up tomorrow and the world is on top of you, do you have a transcending why? For why you get up and why you live your life every single day that's attached to something that's a lot greater than you. So if you get hit with something, your driving force is totally different. And so I fell in love with the game of football at 7 years old. I loved everything about it, man. Like I never played a hard day of football in my life. It was recreation to me, right? Like I loved everything about it, right? Get to go out, inflict violence, not get in trouble for it. Like I loved it, right? Most importantly, I love the team aspect of it. I love the fact that every single day we were working for something that was a lot greater than any one of us. I love the fact that every single day we were locked into something and we can challenge each other and build on each other. I love the fact that I can come out and if my teammate wasn't feeling it, I can say, hey man, rip my passion until you get strong enough to possess your own. But most importantly, I loved it because I felt as if it was a vehicle that can help me improve my family's life. As they said prior, I grew up southeast corner of Atlanta, born to a mother at 16 years old. She took me back to 125 Warren. At 125 Warren, it was a 2-bedroom home, and there was 14 of us living there. I slept on the floor on pallets from the time I was a kid until I got to the University of Tennessee. And that was my first time sleeping in a bed by myself. I started playing tackle football in the street, light pole to light pole. And at a very young age, somebody changed my life. And it impacted me so much that it still affects and impacts the way that I live my life until this day. It impacted me so much that it still affects the way that I treat people today. It impacted me so much that it still affected the way that I respond to opposition, adversity, and how I do things, how I think about things. And so I'll never forget me and my cousins, right? Coming home one day and we're talking and we're dreaming, right? We're dreaming beyond our circumstances, right? And they're talking to me and I'm like, man, I'm gonna go to the NFL one day, right? I'm gonna change our family's life, man, right? I wanna give my mother a better way of life. I wanna give my grandmother a better way of life. I wanna pull my mother off that double shift at Wendy's, right? I wanna have my own bed, man. If I make it to the NFL, maybe all of us can get our own beds one day, man. I wanna give my grandmother her own room. Like I just wanna change our family's life. And I remember one of my cousins saying to me, well, Ink, that's cool and all, but man, we don't even play organized sports. Like we're playing in the street. And I was like, yeah, but if we want it the way we say we want it, we'll just continue to work for it, right? If we want it the way we say we want it, man, we'll just come out and go light pole to light pole every single day. If we want it the way we say we want it, Let's just stay locked into the process. And that's what we did every single day. And when the street lights would pop on, we knew we had 10 or so minutes before we had to go in the house, right? And one night we're playing ball, street lights pop on, and there's a blue pickup truck at the corner. And I'll never forget, I had the ball in my hand and I stand on the sidewalk and my 3 younger cousins stand on the opposite sidewalk. And I'm looking at this truck and I'm like, come on, man. I got to put some moves on these jokers before we go in the house, right? You're moving too slow. And the guy starts to pass us and he's moving extremely slow in his truck. And he pulls on the curb and he gets out of his truck. And out gets the first white guy we had saw in our neighborhood. It's drug dealers on the corner, gang members on the corner. They take off running. They think he's the cops. Nicest guy in the world. He comes over between our game and he says, hey, man, would y'all like to play football on grass? I was like, yeah, man, the street getting a little rough. I would love that. He said, go in the house, get your guardians. Let me speak to them. Get your parents, somebody. I ran in the house. My Uncle JJ was present. My mother was at work. My father wasn't in my life at a young age. I said, hey, Uncle, will you please come and talk to this gentleman? It's a guy outside. He's asking about football. Will you please come talk to him? My uncle said, sure. My uncle came outside. The guy extended his hand. I'll never forget it. He said, hey, man, my name is Trey Hurst. He said, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not even supposed to be over here. I dropped the kid home a couple blocks over. I was leaving the neighborhood, and I see these knuckleheads playing tackle football in the street. He said, I run a program across town. I think if you bring the boys out, be a great opportunity for them, man. Get them signed up. It could really help them. My uncle responds, sir, we greatly appreciate it. He said, but I hate to inform you, we just don't have the money for anything like that at this moment. He said, Inky's mother, she's a single mother. She works a double shift. She don't have it to spare. He said, the other 3, their fathers are in and out of prison. They don't have it to spare. Never forget, the coach without any hesitation says, man, don't worry about it. You bring them to the park tomorrow. I'll sign them up. I'll pay for it with my own money. I remember tapping my cousin's leg. I said, man, he hasn't even seen my spin move yet, man. I said, what type of guy is this? I haven't even seen us play. And he hadn't even seen us play because when he came, we were just standing on the side of the street. And we get to the park the next day, and I soon find out he wasn't just paying for me and my 3 younger cousins. He was paying for kids all across Atlanta. Had his own business, right? Reminded me of what I'm speaking to right now. Reminded me of I'm the product of the spirit of you guys and the work that you do right now. He was an entrepreneur, had his own business, already successful. He didn't have to pay for some little kids to play youth sports, but he did, right? Not only did he did it, he would take kids home, he would help kids, he would do different things for them, and everybody used to want to ride home with Coach Trey. And I'll never forget, most nights I'll be the last kid in the park, waiting on my mother to make it off her shift, and one night she calls Coach and says, Coach, they won't let me off work. Can you please take Inky home? He said, sure, no problem. I get in a little back camper. He used to have a back little camper on his truck, and we would love it. All of us would get back there and play. I get on a little back camper on his truck, and we pull up to my house, and I'll never forget, I get out, and he says to me, all right, Ink, I'll see you tomorrow at practice. I said, all right, Coach. I said, can I ask you something? I said, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I really want to understand something. He said, sure, what you got, Ink? I said, why do you live life the way that you live it? Why do you treat people the way that you treat people? Why do you do things the way that you do them, right? Why do you look at people and do things for them and you never ask for anything in return? And I'll never forget what he shared with me. He said, son, I'm gonna share something with you and I don't want you to ever forget it. He said, first off, you can't disrespect me. He said, Ink, I love you. First man to ever tell me he loved me. He said, son, as long as you live your life and make sure that somebody else's life is okay, he said, son, God will always make sure that your life is okay. And he got in his truck and he left. And at that point, my perspective about everything I was a part of and connected to changed. I no longer viewed it just as a game of football. I viewed it as a platform to cultivate a certain level of excellence and greatness that one day when I was done, it would be certain things I could extract from it to apply to other areas and aspects of my life to make me somewhat of a decent human being. And so when I got to the University of Tennessee, it was a big deal, right? Because I was the first one in my family to go to college. It was a big deal. The crazy thing is the same kids that were in that street that day, me and my 3 younger cousins that my coach signed up at a young age, in my family, the only people that ended up going to college was me and my cousins that he signed up in that street that day. I didn't think that was by coincidence, right? I don't think that was something that just randomly happened. That was an individual that got sent at an appointed time that cared about us and challenged us and pushed us to greatness and see beyond our circumstances. I would never forget riding with him on the other side of town and him showing me different communities. He's showing me different things. I remember he bought me and my cousins our first steak, right? And we came back home that night. We were kids living in a 2-bedroom home with 14 people, right? We never had a steak. I remember him taking us to a little house and getting us a steak. And we came back home that night, running to our grandmother's room. Grandma, we had a steak, right? Experiences, helping us see beyond our circumstances, taking us to the other side of town, showing us, hey man, it's a better way of life out here. You guys don't have to live like that, right? It's people that are not living like that. You can do better, right? Challenge yourselves, push yourselves, make different decisions and choices. And it shaped my mentality and my perspective, but it also made me want to give them a return on their investment. And so when I got to Tennessee, my first 2 meetings, they said, Inky, what's your plan? I said, to graduate in 3 years and go to the NFL. They said, well, you didn't knock it out on your testing. I said, yeah, I get that, but I really need to help my family. And they said, well, we'll see. I said, we will. And I come into my 3rd year. I'm playing football at a really high level. Things are going great, right? I'll never forget watching film on the California Bears. Defensive backs coach, Larry Slade. He's at Carson Newman right now. He comes into the room, says, Ink, I got some great news for you. I said, Coach, what you got? He hands me the first sheet of paper. He says, man, can you believe you're on track to graduate in 3 years? I said, awesome. Hands me the second sheet of paper. He said, son, you're projected top 30 draft pick. He said, all you got to do is do what you've been doing, Ink. All you got to do is go out and execute. You'll be an automatic multimillionaire after this season. I'll never forget dropping the video clicker. And I sprinted out of the room and I called my mother and my grandmother on a 3-way. And I'll never forget when they picked up, I said, listen, after this season, our lives are about to change forever. I said, we'll never struggle again. I said, we'll never miss another meal. I'll never forget talking to him and them crying and saying, Inky, do what you got to do. And we come out the first game, we execute, things go great. Second game, playing against Air Force, great group of guys, tough group of guys, disciplined group of guys. Never forget, 4th quarter rolls around, a little bit over 2 minutes left in the game, and I'm backpedaling to my quarter, and I'm looking at the quarterback, he's tapping the ball, and I'll never forget watching him release the ball, and when he releases it, guy catches it. I break to go make the tackle. And as soon as I hit him, something different happened that had never happened to me before in my life. As soon as I hit him, it seemed as if every breath in my body left. My body went completely limp. I fell to the ground. I blacked out. Never happened to me before. I remember my eyes open and my teammates running over to me saying, Ink, get up, let's rock, let's go. Me responding, I can't. They said, what do you mean you can't, man? You're a guy, let's go. You can nurse your injury after the game. I said, yeah, man, but I can't move. There's a shot going from the crown of my head to the bottom of my feet. One of the scariest moments of my life. I thought I was paralyzed, like my whole body. And I'll never forget the shock leaving, but it stayed in my right arm and hand. They bring the spine board out, put me on it. They wheel me off the field. They get me to the ambulance. My father's standing there. I say to my father, Pops, I got him, right? I put it on him, right? He said, yeah, Ink, but I think you got the worst part of this one. They roll me up. They said, we're going to get you over, run a couple tests. It's football. Things happen. You'll be fine. They get me over. They run their tests. They bring me back into a room. My mother comes in. Never forget, she kisses me on my forehead, cracks a joke, says, Ink, you'll be fine. It's football. Things happen. And I'll never forget watching my mother exit the room. And as soon as she exits the room, I flip my head to the left. And when I flip my head to the left, I remember seeing the head doctor running and screaming. And him saying, guys, get in here. Got to rush this kid back to emergency surgery. He's about to die. And I remember saying, die? Like, away from here, die? Like, die? He said, yeah, die. I said, what happened? I said, everything was so calm and cool. Like, what happened? He said, yeah, when we ran the test, we noticed you had ruptured your subclavian artery and you're bleeding internally. He said, we got to rush you back, take the main vein out of your left leg, plug it into your chest in order to save your life. He said, I guarantee you, you won't be here in the morning. I said, let's go. And the next morning I woke up. I had 6 incisions down my left eye, 1 incision across the left side of my neck, 1 across the right, twice through my right ribs, cut out my right pec, bottom of my armpit to the bottom of my hand, 350 staples in my body. They had bandaged me from my neck to my knees. I'll never forget sitting there thinking, man, I thought it was just an artery. And them saying to me, when we went in to repair the artery, we noticed you had torn the nerves from your spine and your brachial plexus. I said, what's that? They said, it's the nerve roots that go from your spine that controls your shoulder, your arm, your hands, and your fingers. So we hate to inform you, man, but they can't be replugged. So they hate to inform you, Ink, but your arm will probably never be the same again. Your hand, never the same again. You could probably never play the game of football again. Your career is probably over. And I remember thinking to myself, can't be. Like I sacrificed too much. I worked too hard, right? Like this can't be. It can't stop on a dime in a moment. Like it can't be, right? I got to give the people that believed in me and saw something in me when I couldn't see it in myself a return on their investment, right? A lot of people helped shape and mold me, right? One of my favorite quotes is a quote by Dr. Maya Angelou that says, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000, meaning I am the product of the people that believed in me and saw things in me when I couldn't see it in myself. And I have used that as my driving force my whole life to propel me past adversity and opposition. But I'm gonna tell you why Inky Johnson is in front of you today. Because a lot of people saw me get out of the hospital and they said, man, he broke a record. Like somebody with that surgery, he broke a record. He got out of the hospital in as less time as anybody, right? They were sending me to the Mayo Clinic and people were talking about, man, this guy's attitude is amazing, right? The way he's responding to this level of adversity and opposition, it's amazing. But let me tell you, the X factor in my situation, the X factor, the thing that made me respond, the thing that helped me, the thing that lit my fire again, the thing that made me search out purpose and fulfillment again, the thing that helped me turn the page on the opposition and adversity and say, okay, Ink, let's use it. Let's use it. Let's do something with it. Let's use it for good. Let's power the good. I'll never forget sitting there on the edge of my bed, crying. And I started to apologize. And I was saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man. And in the room was my coach that signed me and my cousins up when we were 7. My mother, she shook her head and she was like, I can't take that. And she went to walk out. And I said, I'm sorry, man. My coach said to me, what are you sorry for, Ink? I said, I can't make it to the NFL and pay you guys back. And I'll never forget him saying, you think we did what we did for you so you could make it to an NFL? I said, yeah, I thought that was part of it. He said, man, bump the NFL. Like, I don't even watch the freaking NFL. I ain't do what I did for you to make it to an NFL. He said, son, I did what I did for you so you could be a decent human. He said, the only thing I've ever wanted from you was for you to pay forward in the lives of other people what we did for you. That's it. The only thing I want you to do is to use it. That's it. The only thing I want you to do is keep pressing forward and go out into the world and add value. That's it. The only thing I want you to do is shift your perspective and now find new focus and new energy and new fulfillment. That's it. And in that moment, it changed everything again. It fueled me again. It got me out of the hospital in 3 days again. It made me look at my situation and say, okay, my arm and my hand is paralyzed. My heart isn't. My arm and my hand is paralyzed. My mindset isn't. My arm and my hand is paralyzed. My dedication isn't. My commitment isn't. My arm and my hand is paralyzed. My purpose isn't. My mission isn't. My reason for why I get up and live my life every single day. I've been blessed with an incredible gift. It never got paralyzed. It's time to use it now. It's time to go out into the world and make a difference and make an impact now. Like, I'm not one of these guys that travel around and try to tell people how to do what they do. I would never disrespect you in that way. You do amazing work, right? But I do understand this about life. In life, people don't burn out because of what they do. People burn out because life makes them forget why they do it. I think one of the greatest tricks the world, the universe plays on people is to hit them with a level of opposition, adversity, challenge, uncertainty. See if they remember why they get up and why they live their life and why they do what they do every single day. People don't burn out because of what they do. People burn out because life makes them forget why they do it. I just want one thing from you. to never allow life make us forget why we get up and why we live this thing and why we do what we do every single day. Because believe it or not, just like I believe with every fiber of my being, that every single day when I get up, somebody is depending on me, somebody is depending on you. Not to be Superman or Superwoman, somebody is depending on you to bring your best and what you got on that particular day, to add value on that particular day. Perspective drives performance. How we view what we do will always affect how we do what we do. Every single day, we don't burn out because of what we do. We burn out because life makes us forget why we do it. Most importantly, let's have a transcending why that transcends situations, circumstances, external factors, and people. Let's go out and power the good and add value to every environment we go into and every person's life we come in contact with. That's my time. It was an honor to serve you. Turning it back over to you now, Jeremy.
I'm almost speechless. I mean, let's give Inky a virtual round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. So everyone, if you will, you can put questions in the chat box. There's a Q&A feature. I'll monitor both of those. This is our chance to engage Inky and do some Q&A with him. And
absolutely.
One, Inky, thank you. My goodness.
No,
I mean,
it's a pleasure.
So much to unpack in terms of what you just shared with us. Give a little bit of what you're doing now, because you do have a podcast. You do have a lot on your plate in terms of what you do. So give us a little bit of a glimpse in terms of what you're doing now, especially with the podcast and a lot of your philanthropic efforts.
Yeah, and so we have a foundation here in Atlanta, me and my wife, called the Inky and Allison Johnson Foundation. And we do a lot of work with the Atlanta Mission, with homeless here in Atlanta in the shelters. We do it both with children and young adults, with families. And prior to the pandemic, we would be able to go into the shelters, serve food, help the kids, get some of them hair done, things of that nature, donate clothing to their closets, have back to school bashes, giveaways, things of that nature. And so now we're finding different capacities to serve from that aspect, but also with the podcast, the name of it is Serendipity. And so I firmly believe, like when I was young and I would meet somebody that was in their respective field or craft or whatever they were doing, I used to think like, man, they had to always want to do this, right? And as I got older, I started to realize that it was a journey and it was a story to everyone, right? And that's the serendipity part of it, to just show the human side of life, right? That people go through opposition, people go through adversity, people get redirected, people have dreams deferred. Things don't go the way they want them to go sometimes, and they still pick up the pieces and find new avenues and aspects about life, even in my own personal life. For me, speaking of serendipity, I never saw myself doing this, right? I had a football injury that led to one thing that led to another, and here we are. I've been doing it now for 14 years full time. And so every single day, getting up on purpose and being intentional about looking for serendipity in our lives, because I firmly believe it's always there. It's up to us to extract it.
This comes from Eric Jackson. It says, Inky, what role has Coach Fulmer played in your life?
A vital role. A lot of people ask me all the time, because I'm an Atlanta guy, right? I grew up in the heart of the city. And so quite naturally, in the heart of Atlanta, a lot of people are Georgia, right? UGA. And so even my coach, that started me out when I was 7, he was a big UGA, like he was a bulldog, right? Every chance he got to take us to a football game, he would take us, right, to UGA. And so some of my friends even went to UGA. And so a lot of people all the time say, hey, like, why did you choose Tennessee over UGA, right? Even my family at the time, like some of my uncles like, man, what are you doing? Right, UGA is down the street. And I judge people based upon how they respond to adversity and challenges. Right, it's like my favorite quote, that quote by Dr. King. You don't judge the true character and caliber of a person by where they stand in times of comfort and convenience. Everybody's going to respond great with comfort and convenience. But with challenge and controversy, you see different sides of people, right? And so my whole life, I had been through different levels of challenge and controversy. And so as an athlete in high school, like I didn't know anything about the clearinghouse. I didn't know the requirements. I didn't know the core courses. My Atlanta public school at the time was one of the lowest performing public schools in the whole state of Georgia. People weren't just going to college out of Crim High School. And so when it came time for me and I was playing sports and had potential, I was behind the 8 ball just because I didn't know. And I'll never forget when Coach Foreman came to see me, things were kind of in limbo. And there was a lot of talk about, man, we may have to send this kid, to Hargrave Military Academy. He may have to go to JUCO route. And, I'm a man of faith, right? I'm a believer. I'm that guy. If we're out on the island, I'm gonna believe we getting off if don't nobody else believe. That's just my mentality. That's how I'm wired, right? And so Georgia had already been to see me. They were the first school probably in the SEC, them in Mississippi State, to come and see me. And when they saw my requirements, my grades, they were kind of slow playing it. And I had one more opportunity to make it in terms of everything with testing and everything. And if I didn't make it on that last go round, I was probably going to have to go to JUCO route. A lot of people don't know this. And so Georgia was kind of like, we might want to wait before we give this scholarship if he's probably not going to make it. Tennessee had already been in the picture at that point. And I'll never forget sitting down with Coach Fulmer and him talking to me. And when we got up to depart the meeting, and he knew the situation, I'll never forget this. He looked at me dead square in my eyes. He shook my hand. He hugged me. And he said to me, Ink, I believe in you, man. I know you're going to get it done. I'll see you in the summer. And to me, that meant everything, right? I'm like, this is my type of guy, right? Like, I'm a believer. I'm a man of faith. Like, I would have responded to a kid in that moment the exact same way. And so for me, it proved to be the right decision. Wasn't anything against UGA and Mark Richt, but me and Coach Fulmer, that's my guy, right? Like, he changed my life. He changed my family's life. But most importantly, he believed in me at a time when a lot of people's belief was kind of uncertain.
Do you still keep in touch with, or what role, like when you look at Trey and some of the ones who gave you the opportunity early on, do you still keep in touch with any of them?
Absolutely. Every week I talk to him, because that's something that's extremely important to me. And I'm an extremely loyal person. And, that's just how I was raised, with my mother, my grandmother. They taught me to cherish people, respect people. And when you get good people in your life, you respect them, you care about them, you check on them. And so for me, he was a person that he didn't just, say, hey, Ink, you're a great athlete. If my mom would tell him Inky's not getting it done in school, he would show up at my school, and he would challenge me, right? And he would get on me. He would tell me, man, you the one that can change this for your family. Like, you about to mess it up. Like, he would show up in my neighborhood, right? Challenge me. And for me, I could take that, but most importantly, I respected that and I loved that, because to me, that let me know he wasn't just all this. He cared about me and he showed it with his actions. And so as a man, for me, it's like when you grow up and your parents take care of you on the front end of your life when you're young and they're getting you started in the foundation. And then it's like life flip-flops, on the back end of their life when they get a little older and they need assistance and things of that nature. And now you can step in and you can be there for them. And so for me, that's something that's extremely important to me, to be there and stay connected to them.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to someone struggling with showing up for themselves in their life?
I would say, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace, man. Nobody is perfect. Nobody has it all figured out, even if they look as if they do. Nobody does. Everybody is struggling with something, and everybody has their cross to bear. But I think one of the mistakes we make as people, we think when we meet people, where we meet them is where they've always been. And that's just not true. It's like I tell kids all the time, the Inky that you're seeing right now, I wasn't always this guy. It was a process to get to this point, right? And I had to give myself grace. I was extremely hard on myself, and I still do hold myself to a higher standard and have a high expectation for myself and how I operate. But at certain times and phases and stages in our life to where we have to give ourselves grace, especially over this past year and a half, with what's transpired and what's happened. A lot of people, have been down on themselves, man, because of COVID, because things have happened outside of their control. This impacted their personal lives, it's impacted relationships. Things haven't gone the way that they thought it should go. And a lot of people that are high performers or just used to operating a certain way, it's been tough for them. And I tell them all the time, man, give yourself some grace, right? That's not saying give yourself an excuse. That's saying give yourself some grace. right? To figure it out, but also acquire the right perspective about what you're going through. And every single day, you know, small wins. I say it all the time, like small wins. Get up and try to win the day. When I went through my injury, my goals changed at different phases, right? Some days I would get up and say, Ink, just get up and win the day, man. Just try to have a positive attitude, whatever they throw at you, try to get through it and win the day. Because as people, the thing that we want to do more than anything when we encounter something is we want to understand it. And that's human nature, human behavior, right? And I always tell people, if you're going through something that's extremely challenging or you're having a hard time and you're trying to understand it, just pause that, right? And shift that energy to surviving it, right? Just survive whatever it is. Just win the day every single day. Whether it's I'm focusing on my attitude today, I'm focusing on being of service to someone so I can shift my perspective and not think about me so much. And then when you get to a space and place to where, all right, I got peace now. Now you go back and you try to understand it because you're in a different place and space mentally, that now you can use your experience or whatever you're going through. But more than anything, man, give yourself some grace.
Yeah, the grace, especially as you mentioned during the pandemic, is a huge piece of this. But I like what you said in terms of really two things. One is focus on the small steps. And so for me personally, like I don't go to bed until I do 3 small things that move things forward. But I also love what you said in terms of serve others, because many times you get caught just focusing on the negative energy for yourself and the situation you're in. But you find that when you go and you put the energy out and you serve others, all of a sudden that reframes your perspective, but it also refuels you in a unique way, in a really good way. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Who is someone, it could be on your podcast, through all of obviously the work you do, but who's someone fairly recently that gave you kind of an aha moment or changed your perspective or made you think of things a little bit differently? So who's someone that kind of has, inspired you recently in a good way?
Yeah. So, Jeremy, I believe our lives change multiple times, right? You know how someone may say, man, that changed my life. I believe we have several of those experiences, right? Whether it be through situation, circumstance, or through people, like you're speaking about. And so I want to share an experience that happened recently that, I haven't spoke about to no one, but, I've shared the experience publicly, but I haven't just spoke about it. This is my first time really speaking about it. A couple of weeks ago, me and my son, we got up on a Saturday morning and went to an 8 a.m. workout. And we were coming home and it was storming really bad in Atlanta. Like it was just raining really bad. And so we were coming home and we were getting off our exit. And as we were getting off the exit, we were coming up on a light. And he had cracked a joke. My son had cracked a joke about something that had happened. And so we were laughing and we hit like a little water puddle. And you know how like when you're driving in the rain and you hit a water puddle, your car does a quick shift, and our car did a quick shift. And when it did that, it was like an 18-wheeler or something that was coming up on the side of us. And all I remember is a bunch of water hitting our SUV. And when it did that, it spun back the other way. And when it spun back the other way, I knew for a fact I didn't have any control, right? And so I let the wheel go and we were on a ramp, right? And so I just prayed like, Lord, please don't let us hit this retainer wall and go off the ramp onto the highway and oncoming traffic. And so when we hit the retainer wall, our truck ends up flipping, right? And it flipped back the other way. And when it flips, then it lands back upright. When it lands back upright, I get out of the truck and I grab my son, I pull him out of the truck and, airbags everywhere, windows are burst out, truck is total. And when I pull him out of the truck, I'm making sure he's okay. And it's storming, right? And I'm trying to call my wife, my phone is acting up and I finally get through to her. And when I look up, a car pulls up, right? And the gentleman rolls the window down and he says, hey, Ink, are you good? And I don't know this guy. Like I to my recollection, I hadn't seen him. I'm like, God, call me by my name, right? And I'm not like a celebrity to where everywhere I go, somebody's gonna know me. I'm just Ink, right? Some people may know me, some people may not. It's all good. And so when he rolls the window down, he says, hey, Ink, are you good? And I was like, yeah, I'm good, right? And he pulls over. And at this point, I'm talking to my wife and he gets out of his car. He says, hey, man, I know it's raining really hard. You and your son can get in my back seat, right? And I was like, thanks a lot, man. I greatly appreciate it. My wife's on the way. And so we get in the back seat and I look down and my arm is bleeding on the back of my arm and it dripped on his seat. And so I say, hey, man, like, I'm just going to stand out. Would you mind if I leave my son in the back seat? I'm dripping blood. I don't want it to be on your seat. You know, I'll just stand out here. And so when I stand out, the guy comes out. He says to me, do you remember me? And I'm like, no, I can't say I do. But I'm still out of it. And he shows me his phone. And when he showed me his phone, he says, hey, man, in 2020, I was going through a really tough time in my life. It's like probably the toughest time of my life. And he said, I saw you in the airport and you were on your phone and computer doing some stuff with video. And he was like, I saw you and I went to walk off. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna take a shot. And he said, you stopped everything you were doing. You were gracious, man. You spoke to me. You took a picture with me. You gave me a few encouraging words. And he said, when I walked off, I said, man, if I ever see that guy again, I'm gonna have the words to say to him to thank him, right? And he said, today is that day. And I said, wow. I said, man, praise God, right? And I said, man, but I greatly appreciate you stopping. My wife is pulling up. You can go ahead and go on about your business. He's like, no, I want to stay. And he stayed the whole time, tow truck, cops, stayed through it. And for me, like I told him, I said, it was even more grace on my part that when I saw him in 2020, I was able to serve as a blessing to him in his life when he was going through a tough time. In 2021, at one of the toughest, most traumatic experiences of me and my son's life, God sent them right back to be of service to us. And he also had the words to say to me to repay me for the time that I spent with him in 2020. And so I always say this to people. I believe in reciprocity. I believe in we get what we give in life. Not saying that we do things with the intention of, I'm going to do this because it's going to yield this. No, just the act of being a good person and doing things for the right reason, being nice to people, treating people with integrity and dignity. I firmly believe it comes back. And so you talk about power to good, like that's something that I try my best to live by because I firmly believe it shows back up in our lives in different ways. And that energized my faith. It energized my belief. It energized my gratitude. Like every single day I wake up, my gratitude is even greater because of the opposition. My belief is even greater because of the opposition, right? My faith has been fortified because of the opposition. And so that's one of those moments. And he's one of those people that energize me, man, more than anything. Yeah.
What a powerful experience for your son too, to see the power of God kind of working in that way, but also too, to your point, the energy you put out, you never know when it's going to come back, but all of a sudden it comes back when you need it the most. And so really powerful for your son to see that as well.
Absolutely.
What would your parting words of encouragement be for this group and, you know, finishing out this year and making it a great year and beyond? So what words of encouragement do you have for our group?
Absolutely. So I journal a lot, Jeremy. Like I journal 3 times a day. I journal early in the morning. I journal somewhere around lunchtime, and I journal later in the day. And for me, it's extremely important, but more than anything, it keeps me centered, you know, as life happens, right? I write down things to myself, whether it's goals, dreams, aspirations, challenges, but I also journal to my children and my wife, right? I have a separate journal for them all, and I got the journal for myself. And I often refer to them back throughout the day, just looking at different things, right? But also what it does is it keeps me in a spirit of gratitude. Like that's my word for 2021. You know how we got the one word and my buddy John Gordon created this challenge, like every single year of picking one word that you're going to focus on, right? And just taking every area and aspect of your life, right? Some people's word is energy. Some people's word is drive. My word for 2021 has been gratitude. And so every single day, getting up and being intentional about finding gratitude, but also creating gratitude, but most importantly, having gratitude in advance. And so people say to me, how can you be grateful for something that hasn't even happened yet? And I always tell them that's the point, right? Getting my mind right, getting my body right, getting my disposition right, to be grateful for the opposition, challenges, external factors, uncertainty before they even happen. Because I firmly believe things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And if we can be grateful for it, we can extract a lesson from it. And if we can extract a lesson from it, we can add value with it to every environment we go into and every person's life that we come in contact with. So every single day, find something to be grateful for. If you can't find it, create it.